Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the art of persuasion. We're going to break down the timeless principles that help you build arguments that don't just win debates, but actually inspire people to act.
So let's just start with a simple question. Have you ever found yourself needing to persuade someone? Trying to convince your boss about that new strategy, or maybe just getting your friends on board with a weekend plan. From big presentations to casual chats, persuasion is everywhere in our lives.
But before we can get into the how-to, we really need to understand the why. The true purpose of persuasion is often misunderstood, so let's clear up what it really is and what it definitely is not.
See, at its heart, persuasion isn't about winning a fight or just forcing your opinion on someone. Nope, it's all about inspiring change. The real goal is to motivate your audience to think, feel, believe, or even act in a different way, because they want to.
And that leads to a really, really important point. Persuasion is not manipulation. True persuasion, it's a conversation. It's a two-way street. It's not about forcing anyone's hand. It's about respecting their freedom to choose. And honestly, its effects are usually gradual. It's all about building that trust and agreement over time.
So the big question is, how do we actually build a message that does all that? Well, it turns out there's this timeless toolkit, something first laid out by the philosopher Aristotle more than 2,000 years ago. Pretty cool, right?
So, any really effective persuasive argument stands on three core pillars. You've got ethos, which is all about your credibility. Then there's pathos, the appeal to emotion. And finally, logos, the power of pure logic. Let's break each one of these down.
All right, first up, ethos. This is all about how the audience sees you. Do they think you know what you're talking about? Do they trust you? Do they feel like you've got their back? That right there is your ethos. And hey, ethos isn't just some vague concept. It's something you can actively build, piece by piece. You show goodwill by finding that common ground. You showcase your expertise with solid, hard evidence. And you build that all-important trustworthiness by actually listening to other points of view. Okay. Pillar number 2, pathos, the appeal to emotion. And this one is huge, because while logic might convince someone's mind, it's emotion that really gets us to take action. Pathos is all about connecting with your audience on a human level, right in the heart.
And you can really boost your pathos in a few key ways. For one, tell stories. Make the issue feel personal. Also, connect what you're saying to values that your audience already holds dear. And of course, use vivid language and visuals. Bring the whole thing to life.
And that brings us to our final pillar, logos. Think of this as the bedrock of your argument. It's the logic, the data, the evidence, and the clear, structured thinking that proves your point is solid and makes perfect sense.
Let's just circle back to ethos for a second, because this one is so important. Your credibility, it's not a fixed thing. It's something you have to earn and manage through the entire conversation.
Yeah, think about it in 3 stages. First, there's your initial credibility. That's what people think of you before you even open your mouth. Then, you've got derived credibility. That's what you earn, or maybe lose, while you're speaking. And all of that adds up to your terminal credibility, the final impression you leave them with.
So it all boils down to a really simple but powerful idea. Your final credibility is a direct result of what you do during your presentation. You could start out with a stellar reputation and totally blow it. Or you could start as a complete unknown and walk away having earned a huge amount of trust.
All right, so we've got our tools, right? Ethos, pathos, and logos. Now, let's look at a step-by-step blueprint for putting them all together into a message that actually gets results.
This is called the motivated sequence, and it's a proven 5-step pattern that kind of takes your audience on a journey. First, you grab their attention. Second, you establish a real need or a problem that they can relate to. Third, you satisfy that need with your solution. Fourth, you help them visualize how much better things will be. And finally, you give them a super clear, simple call to action. Okay, now a huge part of building that solid logos, that logical foundation, is making sure your reasoning is airtight. And that means you've got to learn how to spot and avoid some really common traps in logic. We call these logical fallacies. First up, you got to watch out for what's called the ad hominem fallacy. This is basically a cheap shot. Instead of actually dealing with the idea, it just attacks the person who said it. So, for example, when someone says this, they're not actually talking about Mr. Boxwood's arguments at all, are they? They're just trying to tear him down as a person. It's a classic way to dodge the real conversation. Next up is the slippery slope. This is where someone argues that one tiny little step will kick off this unstoppable chain reaction leading to total disaster, usually without any real proof that it'll actually happen.
This argument right here is a perfect example. It's creating this dramatic, worst-case scenario. It takes one single idea and just leaps to this extreme conclusion, all in the hopes of scaring you away from taking that first reasonable step. And last but not least, keep an eye out for either-or logic. This fallacy tries to trap you by creating a false choice. It takes a really complex issue and boils it down to just two extreme options, completely ignoring all the other possibilities in between.
This is a classic. The argument completely ignores tons of other options, right? Like reform or new rules or anything in the middle. By forcing you to pick between two extremes, it just shuts down any real productive discussion.
So, there you have it. We've looked at the purpose, the pillars, the process, and the pitfalls of persuasion. Look, understanding this stuff gives you a really powerful tool to influence the world around you. The final question isn't just how to persuade, but why you're doing it. Persuasion is an art, for sure, but it's also a big responsibility. So, how are you going to use it?